Hello. I was just thinking it's now been about 34 years since Annelise and I first met Ronald Reagan. And we always liked him when we first met him, and we still like him now. And as has been said, we worked with him for quite a long time. In 1988, I wrote one book about explaining what Reagan was like and what he had done. And I thought I really knew about him. But when people left him, a lot of people talking to me about how he was rather silly, he didn't know what he was doing, he was lucky, all kinds of things. They called him names. The thing that they could not understand is how in God's name did he get all that work done? How was he able to do it? And that idea held up with a lot of people for it. For example, one of the things they often would do is, who was actually doing his work? Who was pulling the string? And starting about 6 or 7 years ago, we began to understand who was pulling his string. And the first was called Reagan's Home, Reagan Life, is what he is writing. And we discovered that he could write. And he had from 1975 to 1979, he wrote, I think it was 660 odd essays. He did the research, he did the writing on them, he knew everything about them. Then later on, we got curious and we started looking. Some people had told us that he wrote a lot of letters. And indeed he did. We found over 1,000 letters that he had written. Everything from people who had called in to people in the Soviet Union and so forth. By the way, in the last few years, we've been collecting more letters that he's written. And now there are close to 10,000 letters. Then what has been done recently, he's been, every night, before he went to bed, he used to write in that letter and write in this, as to what was happening during the day. And those documents are incredibly important because they really tell you exactly what he was done, what other people did, and so on. So now what we have is a situation where we've got people that suddenly realize he can write and he can do all kinds of things with the pencil. And he writes letters. He likes to write letters. And now he writes in his diary. And the one thing that was really always fascinated me was, but who was pulling his strings? So one of the things that resulted, excuse me, I get a bad cold, but anyway. A few years ago, I was on the Defense Policy Board. And for that reason, I had top secret clearances. And I talked to some of the people around here, and it took me over a year, but I finally got clearances to come in and take a look at what was Reagan doing. And that was very interesting. So far as I know, no one else has had access to the classified documents, except a half a dozen of archivets who know all about what's in them. And there are millions and millions of papers. And one of the nicest things they did was they helped me. They knew what I was looking for, and they picked out the good ones that I was very interested in. There's enough in there if someone wants to write another 15 or 20 books, but it'll take a while. And when I started doing this, one of the things that struck me is when we opened up these documents, it looked like most of the meetings, somebody had been set up as the person who was supposed to read and then write down whatever it was saying. So while this was going on, and the Reagan was the chairman, and other people, there were about 10 to 15 people, when they were doing all these things that were top secret, he was writing down what every single person said. What Casey said, what Judge Clark said, all those people. And, of course, what Reagan said. So what I've tried to do in this is to go in and find what Reagan did. The reason why I feel very strongly about this is that if you talk a lot about what people will tell you I think there are probably around 300 books written on Reagan, and they all have a different view of Reagan and why he's doing something. So the only really way to find out what he's doing is to get something that he has written or said. That's where you find out what happens. And in what we're doing, we end up with pulling out, I think it was 87 of these classified documents that showed what he was doing and when it was happening. And I think we can say now I think we have the first letter up, number one up here, and they will show you. Oh, there it is. There it is. That's the first classified document. That's the first side of it, which shows all the various people around, from the president down, the vice president, and so forth. And as I was reading through this, I opened on the second page, and that, as you go down about halfway down, it shows what Reagan is doing, and he's telling these people they're really good, and we're going to, Casey's very important. We're going to have the CIA going to build a big here, and he tells people what's going to happen, and then he suddenly says, "But I will make all the decisions." And when he said, "I will make all the decisions," it went on for the entire 8 years. He was running his own lines. He made all the decisions. He listened to these people. He went back and forth. A lot of people argued with him, did not like him. All different kinds of things went through it. And he never wavered. He knew exactly what he was going to do, and he stayed with it. He would listen to these experts, and he had some of the best experts in the world. He would listen to them. Sometimes he would go on the left side, some on the right side. But he always ended up on his side. And what we have discovered in this material as we go on is that a lot of things that happened, Reagan was for. He put them all together. And I think as this goes around and other people see them, it's going to make something different for him, because rarely did anyone realize what he was doing. And some of the most amazing things he did, let's say, is the what he did with Reykjavik and Geneva and so on. And the basic problem now is that how do you deal with a country that's got huge amounts of New York weapons that want to kill you? And he worked on it for 7 years, and he did something which everyone thought was impossible. He got them to pull down, and the Cold War was over. And he finished it up in 1988. And I think the reason why he hasn't gotten as much traction as most people should give him, they couldn't believe it. How on earth did he do it? Because it seemed so simple and easy, but it wasn't. It was extremely difficult. And that's what's in this book, is an explanation of how he did it, who he talked to, and when he talked to. And I'm going to turn it over and let Annelise talk some more about this, and then we'll answer any questions you want to give us. Okay.
Well, I think that what we see as we read various of these documents, there were 355 meetings of the National Security Council during his administration that Reagan chaired. And there are about almost 200 of them have minutes taken by a scribe that tells what everybody said. And Martin requested for declassification and got declassified about 85, 87 of those minutes. And they are a great resource on what Reagan was actually saying. There are a lot of other stories in those minutes as well of what other people are saying, but what he has to say is very important. And you can see that he is his own strategist and that he's following this over a long period of time. But I wanted to go back and read you something that he said in 1963. And this document happens to be in the Hoover Institution archives, and it's quoted in our earlier book, Reagan in His Own